So the Contender Series for the 2024 season, week number 1, just wrapped up, and I think that we have got off to a pretty decent start with pretty good picks and a very good card overall. 4 fighters were assigned, 4 out of the 5 winners on the card. In this video, I wanted to go over every single fight, what happened, what my prediction result was, and then also kind of match up these guys with who I think that they should fight next in the UFC debut for the ones that earned the contract. Let's start off with Lorna Kavanagh versus Antoine Ho. Of course, I did pick Lorna Kavanagh to win, but myself and many others actually expected this to be a very competitive 15-minute kind of war on the feet, and it ended up kind of being a 2.5-minute war on the feet where Lorna Kavanagh ended up getting a brutal knockout over Antoine Ho. The shot that dropped him didn't really look like it did the most damage. I think what actually did the most damage to Antoine Ho and why he was out cold for so long was because he hit the back of his head very hard on the canvas, and I think that's why he didn't wake up for so long. But that is still scary power for someone at 125 pounds, and Lorna Kavanagh is a guy that I'm very much looking forward to see fight in the UFC at 125 pounds. The UFC needs more flyweight. Lorna Kavanagh is going to add a lot to that division, in my opinion, as a young up-and-coming prospect. Jose Delgado come in on very short notice and defeated Ernie Juarez. Overall, it was a very exciting fight, but it did feel a little bit sloppy at times. It started out with Jose Delgado throwing a lot of head kicks, throwing a lot of volume, and then also getting takedowns, which I did like to see. That is something that I saw on tape that I liked to see, which I didn't really love about Ernie Juarez's game, because I actually think that Ernie Juarez's best asset is his grappling, and Ernie Juarez just doesn't grapple that much, whereas Jose Delgado proved in this fight that he's willing to do it. And what happened in this fight was Ernie Juarez gassed out in like 3 minutes. I think Jose Delgado must have really been hurting him to the body, or just hurting him overall, and Juarez really gassed out early on to the fight. But then towards the end of the first round, Delgado, because he was throwing so many big strikes, so many big shots, spinning back kicks and also head kicks and takedown attempts, obviously he started to gas out as well. He took the fight on short notice. So coming into the second round, both guys were pretty tired, but it would be fair to say that Ernie Juarez was probably more tired, and then Jose Delgado was able to time that brutal knee to the head and was able to get the win. Looked very good on short notice. Will be interesting to see how he can do in the UFC. And then the light heavyweights come up, and man, this was a tough fight to watch. I did pick Bruno Lopez to win, but I thought he was going to get it done with the grappling, and man, I was getting annoyed with him not grappling in this fight. Like, he was hitting some big shots from Mikhail Saziniani. Saziniani, I think, probably won the first round, and he was attempting takedowns. He just didn't have good enough wrestling to take down Bruno Lopez, and Bruno Lopez didn't really do anything. I actually thought that this fight was overall somewhat boring, and I think that both guys didn't really look that good. I think to start the fight, like, no one threw a strike for the first 35 seconds or so, and it was just very, very low volume on the feet. Mikhail Saziniani didn't really want to engage. Bruno Lopez was just being an idiot and striking on the feet with him when he should have been grappling. And then what ends up happening is Mikhail Saziniani, after finding some success in the fight on the feet, and also with takedown attempts, even though it didn't really get him down, started to fade very, very significantly towards the second half of that second round, and then Bruno Lopez was able to finish him off up against the cage. Didn't look that good doing it. We'll see how he goes in the UFC. My first and only wrong pick of the card was, of course, one of the picks that I was very excited about. My boy Ding Meng, he lost, and I'll be honest, he didn't look good. It was a frustrating watch, I'll tell you that much, because I still believe, this could be a bit of delusion here, but I still believe that he's the better fighter out of the two. But he just didn't do anything. Like, he didn't throw volume, he didn't really land volume, and Ramy Hamid just fights like how Ramy Hamid does. He does fight from the outside with the leg kicks. He was scooting around and he was kind of running away from Ding Meng, and that is what Ramy Hamid does do in his fights. And I thought that Ding Meng would have been aggressive enough to have landed volume in those periods of time where Ramy Hamid was doing nothing but run away. And Hamid gassed out as well in the second round, and Ding Meng just didn't have the urgency to really land volumes. And then moments happened where Ding Meng would land big shots on Ramy Hamid against the cage, and then he would just stop. Like, Oh, it was a really tough fight to watch, man, just because it was pretty boring. It did kind of suck. Both guys didn't look that good, and welterweight's a tough, tough division, so my standards for welterweights are kind of like a lot higher than light heavyweights are. And man, I think both guys just didn't really look amazing. Ramy got the win, but now he's 33 years old and he didn't really put on like an exciting performance. I don't think he's going to be coming back. So PFL might scoop him up. Maybe Octagon might scoop him up if he's training in that sort of area of the world. But yeah, Ding Meng, I was disappointed, man. Like, I just really thought he was going to be a lot more aggressive. If you do watch his tape, which I spent a long time trying to find throughout Chinese social media, he's a lot more aggressive than he showed today. I thought he showed to be a pretty technical striker. And that's another thing he did weird, was he tried to punch the leg of Ramy. The first time he tried to do it, I thought to myself, that was a bit of a low punch. And then I realized, oh, he's trying to punch his leg. And that's the thing as well. Ding Meng would land big shots up against the cage on Ramy. And then he would punch the leg and like dip. And I'm like, man, like a better strike is just going to time a knee right at the middle. Bad performance from both. Very, very bad read from me. I do take responsibility for that. I really thought Ding Meng was going to win that one. It's a bad read. It happens, you know. But the thing about Ramy is as well, like I'm going to create a little bit of an excuse here. Like he just hadn't fought often. And he just, you know, the guy said he was beating. Like he just can't really... It was just a bad read. But man, just frustrating for me to watch. And then Mansoor Abdul-Malik versus Shultz go to war in the main event, almost to the point where I thought there was potential for Shultz to actually get a contract as well, even though he did lose in the second round by finish. Dana White is very trigger happy with the contracts, but I do understand why he didn't give Schultz the contract, because he did lose, ultimately. I mean, Mansoor Abdul-Malik did prove to be the better striker. He proved to be, in my opinion, the more powerful guy significantly as well. And although Schultz really did kind of have moments in that matchup where he was trying to grapple with Mansoor, was throwing up some arm bars from back, was trying to take the back of Mansoor, Mansoor ultimately was kind of controlling it all, even though it was just complete chaos and no one was really in control for significant amounts of that period of time. And another one as well is I was very concerned about the cardio of Mansoor Abdul-Malik, just because he hadn't ever seen the second round in his career. Aside from his debut, he'd never been past 4 minutes, so you can really just never know how those guys are going to look. And he looked good. He had the better cardio out of the two. He got the takedowns. He did what he needed to do. He landed his big shots, and he managed to defeat Schultz in a pretty close, somewhat close. I mean, until the end. I mean, Schultz was losing the fight, but he was still keeping it competitive, was having his moments. It was exciting. I do think, though, that there was a lot of moments in the fight where Mansoor Abdul-Malik did kind of show his inexperience. And what I mean by that is I feel like in moments he did show somewhat poor fight IQ, and I feel like it just kind of come down to the fact that he had only really got like 7 minutes of professional MMA control time, and he'd never beaten anyone with a winning record aside from someone in his more recent fight. So yeah, I think that the experience will come with time. I think Mansoor Abdul-Malik right now is someone I probably still would classify as a very raw prospect, but with a very high ceiling and a lot of potential. So now that I've broken down the card, let's just quickly talk about matchups that I would do in the future. Lana Kavanagh, the UFC has confirmed to be coming over to China. I forgot the area of China or the region of China, but I don't believe it's China itself. It's a area just slightly outside of China on the coast. But it's confirmed the UFC is returning to China nonetheless, and I think that Mitch Raposo versus Lana Kavanagh would be a good test for Lana Kavanagh. I did see that Sean Bitter, shout out to Sean Bitter, said that he should fight Jose Johnson. I don't love that fight, I'll be honest with you. I would personally like Lana Kavanagh to be tested against a wrestler in Raposo. I know it is young prospect versus young prospect, but when you do look at the flyweight division, they're all just young prospects, so it's kind of what you've got to do. That's the fight I really like to see. Mitch Raposo gets to go overseas in a little holiday to China, and then Lana Kavanagh gets to fight in China. Now, I do understand that a lot of people are wondering why Lana Kavanagh has the Chinese flag, because he does train, and I believe he lives in the UK, but it's because he's half Chinese and half Irish, I believe. But I could be wrong about this, and it could be the other way around. One of his parents passed away, and I believe it was the Irish parent that passed away. So he would have been raised by his Chinese parent. So he probably would have had more of like a I guess, a Chinese sort of upbringing, even though he doesn't live in China, if that makes any sense. So he represents both countries. He represents England and China. But yeah, for Lana Kavanagh, it would be cool for him to fight in China, was kind of my thinking there. Jose Miguel Delgado defeated Ernie Juarez, of course, as I said before. I think this is a test, and we will see who's who. Jose Delgado versus Francis Marshall. If Francis Marshall loses, unfortunately for him, I think it probably is time for him to go and just get a little bit more experience elsewhere, and then he can eventually come back. And then if Jose Delgado loses to Francis Marshall, then we'll probably just kind of know that he's going to have to work on some things, is really my thinking in that matchup. Bruno Lopez keeping up this China theme. He's going to fight against Mingyang Zhang, is what I want to see happen. Zhang Mingyang, common opponent, knocked out Brenson Ribeiro, who of course knocked out Bruno Lopez. And I also think that it would test the potential wrestling and grappling of Zhang Mingyang, even though I do think he probably would KO Bruno Lopez. Ramy didn't get the contract. Maybe they bring him back for a short notice replacement later on in the Contender Series season. We will see. And then Mansoor Abdul-Malik. I'm going to steal this one off Sean Bitter. It's a good fight. I think that he should fight against Trayshawn Gore. Sean Bitter on Twitter, of course, did say this fight. I think he said the Zhang Mingyang fight. But this is a good one. I was looking through the rankings at the UFC, and they are a little bit outdated at the very bottom, and I couldn't really tell if guys were still on the roster or not, and I was thinking maybe against Ihor Potieria, maybe against Robert Burchik, but I thought, only having 6 professional fights, I don't really want to put him in there with someone with nearly 30 pro fights, it's just not really the same, especially when I was just talking about lack of experience. Now, do I think Mansoor Abdul-Malik would beat Ihor Potieria? Yes. Do I think he would beat Robert Burchik? I think that would be a pretty close one. But at the end of the day, he's still got 6 pro fights, and he's only got like 10 minutes, maybe like 15 minutes total professional octagon time. And Trayshawn Gore's also a guy that I would say is pretty inexperienced, despite fighting in the UFC and the Ultimate Fighter multiple times. I think that's the matchup to make. I did consider AJ Dobson as well, but I don't know if he's on the roster anymore. There's kind of a lot of options there. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Actually, quick Week 2 sneak peek. Odds just dropped. Cody Haddon is a massive underdog against Billy Brand. Sneak peek, not really too sure. Huge underdog. He's like plus 200 or something ridiculous along those lines. Although I think I'm going to pick Kuniev. Kanha's like plus 400 as well, which I think might be a little bit wide for that fight. And then aside from that, it kind of makes sense. Imperado's a massive dog. Like, I wouldn't bet on this fight. I just don't think. But yeah, aside from that, it kind of all makes sense. I'll have my Week 2 predictions up in the weekend and also on the We Want Picks. WeWantPicks.com, $10 per month, premium membership. Use my code ARTEM, 3-day free trial. I'll see you guys in the next one.